So about 2 years ago, as many of you are aware, we witnessed here in Paris an extraordinary event. About 195 countries had agreed to take measures to fight together climate change. And suddenly there was unity in one of the most pressing issues facing Earth. And then President Trump arrived. And then he said he will be withdrawing from COP21 unless he can re-enter terms that are favorable to his country. And of course, that caused a shock. And it also might have grave consequences, because the US might produce more emissions in the future and might also attract more super polluters on its land. Yesterday, it appeared that President Trump has also decided to kill the Clean Power Plan. Reuters has reported that the EPA is proposing to repeal what was Obama's administration's centerpiece regulation to fight climate change. So these are direct attacks towards regulation that annoy some industry groups. What is surprising, at least to me, is that these attacks are repeated after recent, huge, and terrifying hurricanes that have shown that something is really, really wrong with our climate. So, to discuss the difficulties in building global agreements, as we can witness it here today, and how to go around those hardships and impediments, we have with us today this morning a great panel, starting with Rachel Kite, CEO of Sea4All, Hindu Maru Ibrahim, who's an ONG coordinator, Claire Dorland-Clauzel, Executive Vice President for Sustainable Development at Michelin, and Jean-Bernard Lévy, CEO of EDF, the French electricity company. So to start, we're going to start with you, Rachel, because you are close to the UN. You're going to tell us what is your role there, and because you're also head of an ONG or an organization that helps bring electricity to the one who don't have it. So can you first tell us about your disappointment when you learned about the retractation of the United States, and what are the consequences that you foresee from such a move?
Thank you very much. So I serve the Secretary General of the United Nations as his special representative on sustainable energy. So it's, how do we get everybody access to affordable, reliable, clean power, and how do we do that in a way that fits within the ambition of what we all negotiated here in Paris 2 years ago. So just to put that in context, so I was sitting a block away from the White House when the announcement was made on June 1st, and I had three initial reactions. The first one was utter frustration, because almost everything in the statement in the Rose Garden was incorrect. And so this is a megaphone of misinformation directed at people to make them afraid, to make them scared of the future, and not about thinking about how they will find jobs, education, and a future, and how they can be, how they can feel that perhaps there's something better for them in front. The second reaction was one of absolute anger. I have two children. They have American passports. That's the statement of withdrawal. Was one of the most spectacular acts of self-harm by a major economy in recent memory. And the opportunities that come from a decarbonized, decentralized, digitalized energy system, a completely new transport system that Michelin is leading on, these are where the new jobs, these are where new communities, clean air is coming from. And that the US would not want to be on the leading edge of that, spectacular. My third reaction was then one of great sadness, because a small group of people funded by industries and interests rooted in the past cannot change the physics, can't change the chemistry of the planet, and can't change the economics. But they can have an effect on the politics, and it's the politics that can start to slow down, start to get more complicated, means that Hindu and others have to do more running around the world trying to keep everybody on track. And you're just aware that that opportunity, that hesitancy, that doubt, are they in or are they out, can create the space for those who aren't really trying to drive to slow everything down. And the one thing we don't have is time.
But do we have a plan B? I mean, we see China stepping up. They say they want to stay in the agreement. We see India showing interest. Can they be trusted? Can they become leaders in this fight?
Well, yes, of course. So the next day, there's this extraordinary outpouring of commitment from cities, states, people, unions, citizens groups, religious communities, faith communities, all saying, well, we're in. And I have to say, living in the US, that is absolutely what you feel and what you see every day. And that connection then to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world saying, well, we're in. And I think for India and China, they have done something very different. They've taken a very long-term view. They have growing economies that need to meet the needs of millions of people, billions of people. They understand that the quality of air in cities is going to be, the make or break issue between social progress and disruption. Water, forestry, land degradation, etc., etc. So they've set long-term targets. They are ambitious. They are upgrading those targets all the time. We just now have targets about electric vehicles and transportation as well as energy. And we see a potential race to the top between China and India, which will be very, very good for the global economy.
So on the ground, your organization aims at bringing electrification to territories that do not have it, but in an environmentally friendly manner. Can you tell us what it means with renewable technologies? How do you go about territories to achieve this goal?
Yeah, so to put it in context, one of the reasons why the deal in Paris 2 years ago was possible was because there was a commitment to leave no one behind. So we weren't going to achieve a clean economy for the 1% and then somehow, have to take care of everybody else. And what's remarkable is that the changes in technology, the dropping price of new renewable technologies means that it is possible to actually think about delivering electricity and clean fuels for cooking to the 1 billion people who don't have access to electricity and the 3 billion people who don't have access to clean cooking today. That's achievable. It's achievable in the next, couple of decades, I would say. The goal is 2030. We've got a lot to do. It's a known universe. It's not everywhere. It's about 20 countries account for more than 80% of who those people are. And the technology, the price of the technology is there. We just need the political will, the systems and the institutions to start to deliver it. And that's one of the solvable problems in this transition to a zero-carbon economy.
So I'm turning to you now, Hindu, because you've made your life mission to plead for those who are the most affected by climate change. And it all started by defending the traditional way of life of your people, the Moboro. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, personally, coming from the nomadic peoples who are the cattle herders, and then we have like our life and livestock linked to the environment. And then we need to protect the environment. We cannot talk about economy, development, or whatever that we have in the world without talking about environment. Because this is the one thing giving us life. And for us now, it's giving us just a survival. So it's really not fair. So myself, I fight climate change because of my people, but because also of my personal life. Because being a woman as in Africa and being a woman as indigenous peoples is really doubly marginalized. And when you see your people, your community are facing every day hundreds of miles just to get water. And they are fighting every season just to get some food. And we is still in the Sahel the most impacted by the food insecurity. And of course, we cannot talk about the electricity, what Rachel is fighting for us, that we never saw that this is a big leaks for us. So I cannot just cross my hand and say, okay, it's fine, it's gonna be well tomorrow. Then that's why I fight for my people to get access just to the basic right, which is natural resources, water, food, and of course, our dignity as human.
Have you had experience with her organization on the ground? Have you worked together before, or not yet, with Rachel?
Of course, we know with Rachel at the international level, from what she's doing to fight not only for the developed countries, because when we talk about energy, access to the electricity and the climate deal, or it's involving like the international organization and the developed countries. But our relationship was how she can help also people like me who are fighting for the people back home from developing countries who do not have voices. And what we need, like in the climate change, in this relation, it's how to hear from us, and that's what make our relation much better.
I understand. And something else you've done is that you have managed to include traditional knowledge recognized and included in the fight against climate change. Can you explain how that works?
Yes, actually, when we come in Paris, people focus more about how we can use more technology, how we can use money, and how we can develop all this to become a solution for the developing countries. Then, because they are taking us as vulnerable people, most impacted, of course we are the most impacted. We are the vulnerable one. But no, we have also our own solutions. And our solutions are based on our indigenous people's traditional knowledge. Because we survived for all these years. We use only our traditional knowledge. I can give you one example. Like in all developed countries, they have the smartphone with the app of meteorological information. You check in the morning to see if it's going to rain or if it's going to be cold, if you use your sunglasses or your umbrella. But at home, no. We observe trees. We observe birds. We observe the displacement of each animal, the behavior. We try to understand. And one of them, it's like, when it's going to rain, you know exactly some insect can take all them way down to them home. And you can see when it's the end of the season that some birds just travel from one place to another one. I mean, they do not have apps, those birds, no. They just use naturally how they can cope with the environment. And personally, we use that. So that's why we advocate to get indigenous people's traditional knowledge as part of the solution, equal to the science that we can use in all the climate fight, and that can help more our people.
And did you see progress there in this acceptance?
Yes, we did have, because we have the decision 135 of the Paris Agreements, who dedicated to create a platform of indigenous people's knowledge platform. And this knowledge platform is for climate adaptation and mitigation. We're still negotiating how it's going to work. For us, the knowledge platform cannot be limited like to the website, or how just the people, you have the knowledge, brought it there and we share it. But how we can conserve this knowledge, how we can value this knowledge, how we can transfer it from one generation to another one, to do not lose it, because it's not only knowledge, but it is an identity, it's a survival, it's a culture, it's a spirit, and then that, if we recognize it clearly in all the international negotiation, and it will be a big step to put the traditional knowledge at the level of the science knowledge to fight for our future.
When you see the difficulty to have a global agreement, but there are some good willing people, ONGs, corporations. Does it really make a difference on the ground for you? I mean, since the Paris Treaty, did you see any difference? Do you see more motivation? Did you see changes come about?
Well, seeing the change is really the big question that we ask for. There was a lot of commitment in Paris from company, from government, from all of them. And then I think you hear just from the energy commitment. So all those supposed to serve the developing countries who are the impacted, but we never saw the colors. Why I tell you we never saw the colors? We talked about how we can share the technology, how we can transfer the money, how much we have in the Green Climate Fund. Then just the last 2 weeks, couple of days, the Green Climate Fund meet, and then they adopt like 11 projects. How many projects is for Africa, for Sub-Saharan? For those developing countries, 0. So is it the change that we need talking is one thing, action is another one. So we are not waiting to have what they committed for to make it in the action. We are doing it ourselves, but I think we need to move. And what we need also is not only the commitment of those peoples, but how we can engage the real peoples. Those the peoples on the ground, who are facing, who are working, who are 100 and billion peoples, who can make difference, but never hear from them because they do not give them floor, they do not give them like mic. So I think we need to change the way, listen more from them and listen from those people's solution, what we need. And that can work. It's not from the bottom up, that is come down there. And that can make a difference.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we see, as you said earlier, Rachel, too, new people are coming in, nevertheless. Corporations are, and you have lots of means. Sometimes you're eager to share them, too. And I was wondering, Claire Dorland-Clauzel, where does Michelin find its motivation? Because you're making tires. As we all know, tires are kind of a polluting item. You're in the transportation sector. I mean, that's a big pollution originator too. So where do you find your motivation to get into this crusade?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the tough questions. I think we find motivation, we have three elements. The first one, probably the most powerful, is the purpose of the company. We have a very strong purpose for years. What do we think? We think at Michelin that the development of mobility is good for human progress, and that innovation, and we are an innovative company, that innovation enable human progress. So everything we do at Michelin, in Michelin, stem from this strong purpose. Our sustainable growth strategy, the product we put on the market, and all we do on every day stems for that, and it's shared by all the employees. Second, we look at the market. What is happening at the market, on the mobility market? This market is growing fast and will grow very fast. And it's a good news, because there is business to do. But how are we going to do business? So, two figures. From 2010 to 2030, the number of cars will double. And 2030 is very soon, okay? The same for air traffic. From 2014 to 2030, air traffic will double. So good news.
Hopefully more
And
electric
course,
cars. Yeah.
Yes, but of course, this increase comes with very tough challenges. Noise, pollution, traffic jam, etc. You know that. And especially in cities where you may know that from now to 2050, more than 70% of the population will live in cities everywhere in the world. So we have very, very tough challenges, but we have a lot of opportunities in companies that are innovative, and especially with the digitalization of economy. We have a lot of opportunities to invent a different mobility. So second reasons, facts, market, business, and we have to change and to innovate. Third, I think that the Paris Agreement itself, it's an enormous opportunity. Why? Yes, some VIP are contesting, but a lot of people are willing to achieve this agreement. Companies, regions, NGOs, cities, even in the States. So we are going to achieve this agreement. And we think that it was the first global agreement, and second, there is something that happened that is very important for companies. It's the first time that in such a negotiation, the power and the utility of companies had been recognized. Why? Because we know that to mitigate climate change, we need innovation and technical innovation. It's thanks to innovation, and innovation is mainly in corporate, in corporations, that we are going to mitigate climate change. So for us, it's an opportunity. And the third new idea is that it's thanks to the cooperation between public authorities and companies that we are going to achieve this mitigation. Because of course, companies have the innovation, but public authorities, they are able to invent new regulation, right incentive, fiscal, financial incentive, because the mitigation is going to be possible if we have the right regulation and the right incentives.
What has been your experience so far, working with states, other corporations? Did you have concrete examples of improvements?
Yes. I'm going to share with you 3 examples. The first one, as we think that we have to fight for climate change, we decided to create a body called the Paris Process, PPMC, Paris Process on Mobility and Climate, that was recognized by the UN authorities. And we create this body together with an ONG, SLOCAT, and to gather all the people from transport sector to try to establish a roadmap for decarbonized transport. Because we need roadmap. Mitigation is complicated. It's not easy. It will take some years, some time. We have to, of course, accelerate. But it was very important to create this body and to gather everybody around us. And now we have this roadmap, and each year at each COP, it's been discussing and it's been improving. So this is the first example. The second one is we have decided to create a worldwide summit on sustainable mobility 20 years ago. It was the Michelin Challenge Bibendum. We changed it last year, and we invented a new summit called Moving On by Michelin. The same, we know that we cannot change mobility alone. We have our own innovation, but of course we need everybody, other companies, startups, NGOs, public authorities. So we decided to gather, like we do here with women, but to gather the transport sector, the mobility sector. And it's working, because it's a way to gather people, to exchange, and to showcase what we are able to do in terms of innovation to transform the mobility sector.
What's heartening in what I hear from you is that even if the United States do not abide by that global treaty, there are a lot of things going on, and financing might be a problem, as you said, but still there are tons of things that are set up today to fight against climate change. So we can pursue without the United States. I have now a question for you, Jean-Bernard Lévy. You've been the CEO of several great French corporations, Vivendi, Thales, EDF today. How painstaking has it been to wake those big corporations to the importance of climate change? And how do you think, how much clout does the corporate world can put into the fight?
Thank you. First, let me tell you, I'm very happy we can discuss climate issues in this forum, because I really believe that there is a lot in common between the two great challenges that we face: managing diversity, managing climate problems. I think these, and you said, you know, over time, how do you look at this? And there is a lot in common, because at one point in time, for instance, when we think about the way we manage our corporations, or the way our corporations can play a larger role than in the past regarding these big global issues, I am quite optimistic that over time, and of course there may be ups and downs, but that over time we will manage to improve the situation in both areas. And a lot of it will be due to those companies, like Michelin was mentioning, and I hope EDF, or previous companies I ran. And I think those companies will play a larger role than ever, because sustainable development issues and we are discussing issues that are in both, of course, key in the way we can develop the planet in a sustainable way. Sustainable development issues are now such a big requirement from all our stakeholders that it is something that we don't even discuss. Maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, both gender diversity management and climate management would be looked at by many people inside the corporation or even outside the corporation with a lot of skepticism. But today, this is not the case anymore. So really, what is required of us is, in both areas, what can we do concretely? I was really amazed that in the United States, after the Trump statement in about 4 or 5 months ago, so many companies decided, we don't want to hear about this, although he's an elected president and so on. We don't want to hear about this. We are going to do it. We are going to do it. We're going to do it by ourselves. We are going to do it within business groups. We are going to do it with the cities and states. We are going to do it with the NGOs and so on. And I think this is a clear demonstration that even when the leader of the largest, most important country in the world says he doesn't care about climate, well, now people dare say, no, you're wrong. We are going to do things by ourselves. We don't care about what you said because we believe this is the right fight, the right challenge for mankind.
I'm glad to hear that because, frankly, I was kind of suspicious of the honesty of big corporations. You know, sometimes you just feel like it's a PR stunt. You want to be good to your shareholders. You want to have a great public image. So yes, you're environmentally friendly. What I liked in what you said is that it took years. Say 15 years ago, we were not there. It took a long time to raise awareness within the companies. And now, of course, it has, because we have been educated somehow, thanks to the UN and different ONGs, and now some corporation, that there is really a need to act. So it doesn't seem that fake anymore. And we appreciate that as citizens.
And maybe may I add, when I look at our various stakeholders, whether it's our shareholders, people who lend us money on the financial markets, whether it's our own employees, whether it's, of course, number one, our customers, all of them require that we take action in the climate area. So even if I personally believe, which is not the case, so I should say, even if I personally believed that man is not the reason for climate events like those we are living, I would not be able to be a good CEO if I did not meet all these stakeholders' expectations. So now, let me say, I do believe in climate change.
So as Hindu argued earlier, financing is really the difficult problem today. And as you well know, President Macron is holding a conference on December 12th towards that purpose. And what are your thoughts on the best way to effectively mobilize money and means?
I think today, our experience is that there is a lot of private money available. So everybody is expecting that there will be commitments made at COP21 that will start to be managed and to be brought by states in a more ambitious and more concrete way. This is difficult. But when we look at what we do find green money quite easily available for green projects. We are probably at EDF one of the largest, maybe the largest green bond issuer in the world. We have 5 billion of green bonds that we started already 5 years ago. We've gone to Japan to tap the green bond market in Japan, the first non-Japanese company to do so. And of course, we borrow in several other currencies. And at the end of the day, we match our green projects. And now our green projects are, of course, a majority of what we do. We stopped coal projects. Just when I was arriving at EDF 3 years ago, I stopped the last coal-based projects that we still were looking at. But, and then we managed to tap the green bond market, and there is a huge private sector need or demand for green projects that we finance. We now even have done something which I think is quite unusual. Not many companies have done that. We have an agreement with a bank. I'm happy to name it. It's ING from the Netherlands. And we have an agreement with ING where we will be able to borrow money from ING according to the ratings we have in the environmental space from an independent agency. So isn't that a great incentive?
Absolutely. So I see that we have about 4 minutes left, and I think it's the right time then to ask you the question that has been asked, I think, to everybody on those panels in this conference is what do we need to do to take action, and what would you do? I'll start with you, Hindu.
Yeah, thank you. From what I hear, we don't need to manage. We have to stop by saying we're managing. We must do. We have to do it. We have been negotiating all the life. We cannot say we need more time. How it's come? Time is right now. Like we cannot say, okay, we postponed it. Otherwise, we can never have the right time to do it. We have to end with the fossil fuel. We have to end all the fossil now. We saw that. We saw the last couple of weeks, all the hurricane, who ravaged all the Caribbean, the beautiful islands. We saw the US, all the flooding. We saw the fire in Portugal. We saw the fire in France. Of course, we are seeing all the food insecurity, all the bad things in Africa. But those bad things are coming also to the developing countries. Do we need more time? No. I think no. We don't need more time. Time is right now. So all the companies need to stop what they are doing, the fossil fuel. Then all the developing countries need to stop also today, excuse me to being honest, money that they are using through all the bad things. They have to shift. They do not think about us. They're just thinking about how we can be a big peasants, how we can earn more money, how we can control the world. But who are controlling our life? At the end of the day, everybody going to die and no one controls this life. So they need to think about us. So that's the action we need right now.
Thank you. So Rachel, we understood that time is of the essence.
Yeah, so it should be totally unacceptable to anybody who votes in one of the G7 countries that your country can sign up to Paris and then you would subsidize the fossil fuel industry to the tune of $500 billion a year. That is bad money being thrown away after good, or bad. You choose. It should be unacceptable to you that 6% of board seats for corporate boards in the energy sector are held by women. The definition of stupidity is to ask the same question of the same people and not expect the same answer. So there are things we can do. There is plenty of money in the world, and it's being directed through subsidies and vested interests into the past. There's plenty of money starting to flow into the future, but it doesn't trickle down to the disruptive opportunities that would come from meeting the productive needs of people who do not have access to clean water, to clean energy right now. And if they got some of the support that's been promised and they got it earlier, then you would see vibrant economies creating jobs, creating opportunities, creating education, and you would not have some of the other problems that Europe and elsewhere is so terrified of, which is a lot of people on the move because there is no opportunity and no hope where they are today. So everything is connected, and we sit here and we are privileged and we are not disciplined and we are not coherent, and we should start pushing this through in the ballot box at the local level and the national level. There's no excuse.
Go ahead and vote. Claire.
So, of course, I agree that we have not time anymore, and so we have to act. I think it's not so easy. because there is a lot of issues to deal with. So I think that what is important is to establish this roadmap sector by sector, because we have to mitigate. And I think that, okay, corporations have to act, but citizen, customer, you, each of us, has also to act. For example, when you buy a product or a service, just buy the product or service that are made respecting the planet, you see? Because corporations, they have to do business. If the customer don't want to buy any more products that are not compliant, you will see, it will change.
Yesterday, the CEO of Procter & Gamble was saying that he had produced the first bottle of shampoo that was recyclable. So I guess it's all in your side. What about you, Jean-Bernard? If we say take action, what does it mean?
Well, first, I will certainly buy the shampoo. I think one key decision to be made soon should be to implement a global policy for a carbon price floor. I think this has been demonstrated by Jean Tirole. If you read Jean Tirole,
French
economics
economist,
Nobel Prize, 20 pages in his last book, very clear. You create a carbon price floor. This creates money from developed countries to help developing countries mitigate the effect of carbon price flow. And this is a win-win solution.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we're on time.